What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Real Fans FC. And today we're going to be talking about and giving our reactions of the Concacaf teams that have qualified for the World Cup. I know we're a little late on this, but we're going to break down each team's group, just giving our initial reactions, let you guys see where we're at, how we feel about the groups that each one of these teams are in. We're not going to give full blown predictions yet. There's still a lot of things that are we want to shake out and let the second half of the season play out. See, maybe teams get better with the friendlies coming up, whatnot. And obviously, we're not going to go deep into. I mean, I guess we'll talk a little bit about the potential of some of these knockout teams, but most likely we've already did a video on that. They're probably not going to make it. So, anyways, well, I'm going to start off with Group A, and that has our beloved Mexico in it. And in that group, there's not just Mexico. There is South Africa, South Korea, and the UEFA Path D winner. What do you think of this group? And mind you, the Path D winner is either going to be Czech Republic, Ireland, Denmark, or North Macedonia. I think a lot of us and a lot of people are leaning towards either it being Denmark or Chechnya. So I'm leaning more towards the Denmark side. But regardless, what do you think of this group for Mexico?
Yeah, I think most fans would pre-assume that it is going to be Denmark. If you look at this potentially as well, I just looked at this earlier today, dude. Ireland would be hosting if they are able to win both of those games. So, they could go into Dublin and the Irish could be able to seal this deal and make it back to another World Cup since the 90s, I believe. So I'm going to be honest, dude. I would pre-assume Denmark, but I wouldn't sleep on the Irish. Or like you said as well, the Czechs, they are coming in hot and they have some big name talents and big name players on their team. Regardless, though, a lot of these teams have kind of the same play styles. They're more of an attacking front. Defensively, they're still sound, but, obviously Ireland's big guy, Troy Parrott. Denmark right now with the Man U kid, he's doing well. Obviously Rasmus Højlund, and Czechs obviously with Patrick Schick. So there's a lot of heavy attacking up front for all those teams there. Now, when it comes in regards to South Korea and South Africa, and obviously, like you said, keeping on the video, how does this match well with Mexico? I think the Mexicans. I think it's hard, dude, because I think if you ask two different groups, I think if you ask the Liga MX lovers, the people that are there, they're going to say this is the easiest group in the world, and obviously shout out our boy Jack over at Deadball TV. He chopped it up a lot with Football Asada. And, there was a lot of discussion of whether or not this was one of the easiest groups ever. And it's not. It's just completely truthfully not. South Korea, I think, is obviously a mismatch for these guys. I think South Africa is going to hit a 1-2 punch on Mexico. And whoever that European team is, they're just going to be better on the field. They just have better names. So I think a lot of people, in Mexico might say this is a 9-point group or whatever the case may be. But I think it's the complete opposite. I think this is going to be a grit fight. I mean, dude, this is going to be, I'm talking about 5 rounds. Like, this is a 5-round battle in the UCF main event. This is not going to be easy. And I think the Mexicans have to be up for it. Now, I will say they are, like you just said, Julian, they are the host. So they have a lot going in their favor. And I think that's going to be something to be able to get them over the finish line. Obviously, like you said, for a later time, we're saving our predictions for now. But I do feel like Mexico will be able to get out of this group, but it's going to be a dog battle.
Yeah, man, I agree entirely. Look, and I see where a lot of people and a lot of Mexican fans are coming from, where there's no like absolute powerhouse favorite to win the group. I mean, they think they might be, but to be fair, there is no Germany, there is no France, there's no England, there's no Brazil, Argentina, nothing like that. It's a pretty balanced group from top to bottom. I think a lot of people put a lot of disrespect on the South African team, but this is a South African team who actually earned their spot into this World Cup in a confederation that is very, very difficult right now. That was hyper competitive. That came down literally to the dude. Nigeria didn't make it, and we look at Nigeria as one of the powerhouses of AFCON, and they didn't make it. South Korea is a team that's consistently on the rise. It's a team that they just saw where they competed with, and I believe that game was a draw. And then we look at a Denmark team or potentially a Denmark team or a Chechnya team where they haven't been able to necessarily recapture what they did in that Euro in 2021, but they're still a very competitive team. They're still a very deep team. They have a lot of players that are playing in high level leagues. there's no layup in this group for Mexico. Now, do I think Mexico can win the group? Yes, I do think there's a possibility that is the case. But this is a this is still a very tough group, and there's not going to be an easy layup in any of these games. Each now, the one advantage that Mexico does have on their side is the fact that they're home, and that is a big deal. But quite honestly, there's still a lot of competition to be had, and look, I'm not going to throw it out there, and I don't necessarily think it's going to happen, but there is a possibility or a world where Mexico gets third place and doesn't qualify to the next round because I believe only 8 out of the 12 third place finishers are going to make it. And most likely, this is probably going to be a pretty low scoring group because I picture a lot of draws of maybe a 3 point victory here or there. This isn't like there's not a layup team in here that you can that third place team can kind of feed off of. So because of that, it's going to be really difficult. I mean, and a lot of people that are saying, I'm curious your thoughts on this. Do you think this group is harder or easier than the group they saw in the Copa America?
Ooh, man, I thought you were just about to ask, was this harder or easier from the group they saw in the last World Cup? And to
No.
answer that question, no, this World Cup group is harder, with all due respect. It's more balanced out. Now, when it comes into the Copa America, obviously in Ecuador, that was kind of coming in solid, decent form, not that hot. A Venezuela team that was riding into that Copa America very, very hot, but still it was a Venezuela team. And you look at a Jamaica team that everybody, going into that summer was they're just going to flop again. So no, this World Cup group is harder. This World Cup group is 20 times harder. I mean, you just look at it from top down, from paper ends. I mean, and not even looking at it on a world football stage or looking at names and this and all the brands and things like that. But I hate to say that with all due respect, South Korea is wiping the floor on Venezuela. Let's just be realistic right now. And,
Oh,
and I hate to say that, I would love to see, my Venezuelan brothers be able to win that, but that's a tough one. With all due respect, Ecuador is one of my favorite teams in CONMEBOL, but I don't think they're going to beat South Africa. I think that's a draw. I think that's a 0-0-1-1 game written all over it. So no, I don't think this is like that type of beat. And obviously Jamaica, that's just, Jamaica wouldn't compete with any of these three teams. It would be a tough one. I mean, they would compete, but it would they just wouldn't be able to last the full 90. I
and
couldn't see
yeah,
it. But
and just to think, like
yeah, but
they
yeah,
couldn't
no,
even get out of that group. So what makes me, and that wasn't even that long ago. Now, granted, I do think Mexico has been
yeah,
performing a little bit better since then, so I will give them that. And obviously, the home field advantage is a big deal. But with that being said, let's move on to the
yeah,
next. Let's move on to the next team, and that is Canada, and that is in Group B, where we have Canada, Qatar, Switzerland, and UEFA Path A winner, which is going to be either Wales, Bosnia, Italy, or Northern Ireland. Obviously, the favorites to come out of that is going to be Italy. If you're Canada, you probably don't want it to be Italy, but most likely, let's say that it is. Um, this is
yeah.
another group for me where I'm like, man, a, that's a tough group for Canada. Now, depending on which kind of Qatar you're going to get, that varies. Is it going to be the Qatar of 2022, or is this going to be the Qatar that actually earned their spot into the World Cup, and back to back AFC champions in the AFC in the Asian Cup? I don't know what Qatar we're going to get. That's kind of a hit or miss. I don't really follow Asian ball to that knowledge, so I'm not going to go too deep into that. But if we look at a Switzerland and or Italy, granted, this Italy team is struggling. It's not a very confident Italy team. This is an Italy team that, and honestly, could be, they're pretty beatable. Like, no one necessarily has Italy going on some crazy run as we approach the World Cup, but it's still a very competitive, a very deep team, a team that, plays in top leagues all throughout the world in Europe. And then a Switzerland team that, man, those guys know how to play well together. So like this is going to be really really tough for Canada. I do see Canada fighting for a second place. I mean, there is a world where they can get the first place. They are at home. Now, I do think the Italy fans are going to absolutely show out in Toronto. That's going to be a big big game for them. But this is tough, man. This is but it's an exciting group, and I'm curious to see how Canada approaches this and how they face teams of this quality. it's going to be really interesting to see because from what the little bit of friendlies that they've had over the past couple of months, they've looked pretty solid. So I anticipate they're going to put up a
Yeah.
fight. They got the nerves out of the way in the last World Cup. It's pretty much running it back with the same squad outside of a couple players here or there. I think they're going to look pretty good, man.
Yeah, I on the hype meter for the Italians, or excuse me, the Italians, for the Canadians, I think they look at this and they're hyped. I'm talking about 8, 9 vibe. They're up there. On the fear meter of holy crap, we might get grouped. This is gonna be tough. I think it's also at an 8 or 9. I think this is a very, like you said, this is a top, sort of in a way, a top heavyish group, but it's also very, it seems kind of like it could be on paper a straightforward group with, like you said, pre-assuming Italy makes it. Also, don't sleep on Wales, potentially. That could be a team in there. But like you said, pre-assuming for now the Italians make it through, Italy and Switzerland seem to be the teams that would kind of march through and roll through with it. I'm going to stick with that prediction. I think the Canadians, I think they will make it tough. This is not going to be a 4-0 thrashing. Italy's not going to wipe the floor on them. But the thing is, and I look at the Swiss, they don't only just have World Cup pedigree on this team, they have Euro pedigree. They have Champions League pedigree. They have guys that have played in the biggest tournaments all throughout the world. And I'm not just talking about international football, club football as well. These guys are stacked top to bottom when it comes to Noah Okafor, Akinji, their goalkeeper. I'm forgetting his name, but the Sunderland midfielder. Who?
Oh, wait. I thought you were talking about I thought you were talking about Italy. Never mind.
No. But still, I mean, them as well. But the thing is, like, Switzerland are just so. This is a team that they're just certified to make the knockout stage. You look at, I think I was looking at that earlier today, dude. Going, I can't remember the last time Switzerland did not make it out of the group of the World Cup. If I'm not wrong, it was 2010, and I think the last time they didn't make it out of their Euros group was 2012. Like this team is certified to make it out. They've done it in the past World Cups, they've done it in the past Euros, and they've done it consistently. And like I said, they obviously have a strong captain in Akinji, who's going to be able to lead the troops up ahead. So I think Canada, it's a tough one there. And dude, I also just look at, like you said, that Qatar game, that's not a slam dunk as well. It obviously fully does depend on the Qatari national team that comes out there. But this is a Qatar team. They're going to look at that Canada game, and that's their World Cup final. We're going to talk about other teams in a minute. That is Qatar's World Cup final against Canada. So they're going to come out guns blazing, and I could see that being a team that the Qataris realize they need to get something. They need to get a result in that game. So Canada shouldn't feel confident. I would still take the Maple Leafs in that one. But yeah, this is a tough group, man. This is really, really something that the Canadians, they have to prepare. Like you said, they have to be rooting for Wales, Northern Ireland come March. They don't want to see the Italians on that field because, dude, I'm going to keep it real. It's that first game as well. And like you were stating, dude, BMO Field, it's going to be sold out regardless. But if it's the Italians, I mean, it's going to be sold out 50-50, maybe even potentially in favor for the Italians. So it's a tough group for sure.
Yeah, we'll move on to the next group. I feel like this one's probably going to be a little bit more predictable for us. And that is Group C with Brazil, Morocco, Haiti, and Scotland. Look, man, Haiti, incredible feat to make it to the World Cup. And that should not be taken for granted whatsoever, considering everything that's going on in the country right now. All the players and everything they fought for, not making it into the World Cup in 51 years since 1974 or 75 or something like that. The fact that they're here right now is an achievement in and of itself. But man, this group, guys, it's going to be brutal. I think this is a Scotland team that is coming in here super hot, super motivated. Them making the World Cup for the first time in a while. Morocco, who went on a crazy run last World Cup, that they were the Cinderella team, and they've just gotten progressively better if we look at them over the course of the past 3 years. And then it's Brazil, man. It's Brazil. What more can you say? This is a Brazilian team that has Carlo Ancelotti at the helm. Everybody should be there. Now, granted, there's a lot of question marks when it comes to Brazil as they approach towards the end of the tournament. Because, quite honestly, I see them winning this group and getting out. But if we look at how Haiti performs against them, this is going to probably be a bloodbath. This is going to be really, really bad. But if they can show any signs of life and actually compete and be defensively solid against any one of these teams, that'd be great, man. If somebody out there can make a name for themselves who can help Haitian football going forward as a young buck or whoever, that'd be great. But I look at this group for Haiti, I'm like, man, this is going to be tough. This is going to be a tough one, boys.
Yeah. Yeah, currently right now, while you and I are filming this, Julian, AFCON is being played, over in the beautiful country of Morocco or over in Northern Africa. And, I'll be honest, I haven't been able to fully watch in depth every single game, but I have been keeping up a little bit more with like the teams that are going to the World Cup, the South Africas, the Moroccans, the Tunisians, even the DR Congos and teams like that. So we obviously know these teams are high caliber. They're big, heavy opponents. Morocco, this team, dude, is they are just imposing their will, and they have had a couple games in this AFCON. That Tanzania game was a little bit rough, that first or excuse me, that second game against Mali was also a little bit tougher as well. But the thing is, what those teams were able to do, I'll be quite honest with you, dude, a Mali and a Tanzania, I'm going to be quite honest, dude. I don't see Haiti, and like you said, first and foremost, shout out to our Haitian brothers. Incredible, dude. Incredible to also just be here. It's a big moment. It's a big day. It's going to be a huge month for them. I hope the best for him. I really do. I'm rooting for him. I want to see him do well and whatnot. But yeah, Morocco's just going to be, dude, that's a team that they're starting to get big name basis, man. They're getting heavy top, and they have players all over the world, and they're strong. Brazil's Brazil, and then like you said, Scotland's going to be the game I could really see the Haitians coming out there with. The good thing is, obviously Scotland's got a lot of big names in it. Andy Robertson, Sauce McTominay, like guys like that, dude. And yes, he is Sauce McTominay because the kid's saucy on the field. But it's just like I I could see that Scotland game being a little bit more of a. It's going to be a cage fight. It's going to be a little bit of a chicken coop fight, like two dogs just going at it. It really is going to be a tighter matchup. I will still have to unfortunately favor the Scots in that one, but yeah, this is you want to talk about Mission Impossible. You're living off of a prayer right now, dude. It's going to be this group for Haiti. This is a very very tough group because what hurts them as well is Haiti and Morocco. I feel, or excuse me, Brazil and Morocco play the same way the Haitians do, just at a higher level. They're able to implode their will. They're able to battle in the midfield. Their wingers are going to create chances 24/7. Their wing backs are pushing up all the way to the freaking goal net. Like
Oh man,
it's
Hakimi's gonna
just
have a
unfortunate.
field day on that right side because Lacroix is he's not the
Yeah.
best at the left back position for them for Haiti. So
Yeah, and I look at the midfield, and dude, the thing is, what worries me is when the Haitians went up against an Honduras midfield and a Kevin Adiaga and a Debbie Flores, which is a solid midfield. I wouldn't say it's the best in Concacaf, but it's a top 7 or 8 within the region. They got trampled. I mean, they literally got slapped up, dude. Belgrade got like just torched up. So it's one of those. It's going to be tough. Like I said, I think the Haitians they're obviously going in this high spirit. They're going to go in flying. Yeah, I just think they got to go in there realizing that this is going to be a totally different battle. But I will say though, if there's something that I do give the Haitian players and the fans is they're not afraid of anybody. They went into this World Cup qualifiers realistically being the third favorite, not even the second favorite, the third favorite to get out of that group. And I mean, dude, look what happened. They were able to make
mhm.
some magic happen. So I wouldn't count them out.
Yeah, well, let's move on to the next group, and that is Group D with the United States, Paraguay, Australia, and UEFA Path C winner, which is either going to be Slovakia, Kosovo, Turkey, and Romania. I think if we look at this, it's probably either going to be a Turkey or Romania. I'm leaning more towards the Turkey route, but Turkey tends to struggle in competitions like this, but this does seem to be a different Turkey team from years past. But let's say it's either Turkey or Romania that makes it to the Group D. We're looking at another group that I would say is very very similar to Group A with Mexico. As for the United States, you have a Paraguayan team that is very, very defensively solid and can get you on the counter cat because they will find a way to score at least one goal. They won't. Paraguay's not a team that will score a bunch of goals, but they can be defensively solid and they can get one in the back of the net if they need to. Another team, Australia, going to be defensively solid. Those are two teams for the United States where they're really going to have to break down that mid and low block to get through and score some goals. That's going to be a tough challenge for them because the United States historically has had a tough time doing that. Now, in the friendlies, they've been able to perform and be able to do that, but friendlies are always kind of weird. Sometimes things aren't always the same as it is in friendlies. The intensity is a little different. Now, you are going to be at home, and quite honestly, those matchups are pretty favorable for the United States in terms of fan bases because I can't imagine a world where Paraguayans outshow at the United States at home. Same as it goes for Australia. And whether it be, well, Turkey might show up. I don't know. Those guys travel like crazy. But man, this is a tough one for the United States. Now United States might have to be on the other end of this when they play somebody like a Turkey, like they did earlier in the year, where they're going to go out. Turkey's not going to be afraid to go after the United States. They're going to go guns blazing right at them. So it's going to have to be a little bit of a dynamic shift in the way that they play. And I'm curious to see how Hodge is going to handle that. But with that being said, man, this is I like this group for the United States. It's very similar to me as it was last World Cup, just a pretty competitive one. I don't know if they're the favorites. It really depends who gets that final spot. But this isn't a cakewalk for the United States, but they are good at home. So there's that.
Yeah. I get big 2010 vibes from this group. An Algeria team that was very strong defensively. You kind of like you were alluding to earlier, Julian, that's an Australian team. You look at a Slovenia team that was solid defensively, but they could also counterattack you well, and they could punch up front, ahead, and they were able to do that in that World Cup. And I kind of look at like a Turkey, and I see Turkey doing that. And then obviously, Paraguay is not at that level that 2010 England was, but that's still a team that, I mean, golly, man, like you said, the Paraguayan defense, dude, that's a guy that I don't want to look in the locker room. I do not want to make eye contact with the Gustavo Gomez, man. I mean, that's a dude that's going to beat you down, and you look at Omar Alderete and obviously Ramon Sosa coming off the bench. And I mean, their big boy, Julio Enciso, he's going to be here to create some magic as well. So, dude, I agree with you in the sense of like, it is a balanced group. It seems more in favor for the United States, obviously being the home team. The fan bases, I'm going to be real, dude, they're going to travel well. They're obviously not going to outnumber the U.S. Outlaws. They're not going to outnumber the U.S. fans.
No,
but there's going to be
like if it was somebody like a Brazil or somebody from another team from South America or a European team.
Yeah. But I could see a good like 25 to 30% of the stadium just a solid yellow of Australians, or a solid, red and white. 100, dude, yes, 100%. I mean, like the thing is, like with like the closeness and obviously geographically where these teams are located. I mean, I could see these teams showing up. It's not going to be a sold out.
Australia?
You're not going to find.
Well, come on, bud.
Dude,
I've been to Australia.
Julian,
that's
you act like
far as it's far.
Bro, but this is the World Cup though, dude. If this was some random friendly, I would be like, yeah, you're gonna probably have 20 fans there for them. But this is a World Cup, dog. Like I could see these fans traveling.
Would you travel to see Panama play in Australia?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Listen, when I said closeness, I was talking about Paraguay, the proximity. Obviously, a flight from South America here.
That's far.
I mean, it's not super close, but it's not super far away though. It's not like crazy bad.
Like 10 hours.
But yeah, so not 10 hours. All right. Anyways, I digress. This is still, they're going to travel well. I don't think these fans are just going to say, oh, it's a whatever. And dude, you also got to look at, like I said, the realisticness of like, there's fans within this country already. There's Paraguayans already in California. There's already Australians over there and things like that. So, and it's going to be a tough game. I think the pressure is on the United States. I mean, you want to look at a heat meter and what they're feeling, I'm talking about, dude, it's a good 9 right now. It might be pushing 10. The fire is ablaze. I mean, you got EMS on the phone, you've got the fire department on the
Yeah, you
phone,
definitely
you've
feel
got
confident.
all these people. Yeah, I mean, they feel confident, but it's also one of those. I'm talking about pressure is high, man. So the United States really, it's going to be a gridiron lock-in games, all three of them. So I will say they favor this draw, but I also look at the opposite end, and I think all those teams favor the draw as well. Kind of like we were talking about Mexico. Mexicans can view this as an easy group, as a slam dunk layup. But I don't know. I think I will say it's a little bit more favor for the United States than it is a Mexico, but I just wouldn't sleep on any of these teams.
All right, let's move over to Group E, and there we have Germany, Curacao, Ivory Coast, and Ecuador. So obviously, the CONCACAF representative in this group is Curacao, and man, this is kind of similar to the Haiti group. This is going to be rough. This is going to be a really, really rough one for Curacao. Now, the one advantage I will give Curacao over a team like Haiti is Curacao, I find to be a lot more dangerous in the counterattack. Now, this is at the CONCACAF level. It's a lot harder to counterattack a Germany or Ivory Coast or an Ecuador because these are. I'm not so sure about Ivory Coast, but at least at Ecuador and a Germany, these are two teams that are very, very, very defensively solid. And I just don't know. Look, I'll say this: I think Curacao will be able to sneak a goal here or there, and maybe like surprise some people. You know what I mean? But overall, I think they're really going to struggle, and it's going to be a tough uphill battle. I mean, I don't know if they're necessarily going to have a ton of fan support as well compared to like a game against Ecuador or Germany, but this might be a rough one. But I wouldn't be surprised if they'll be able to sneak a result here or there against not a result, but a goal against a team maybe like Ecuador or Ivory Coast. Shit, even a Germany. Germany's been known to like let something slip by them. But that's at most. I don't know if they could get. I'll say this: I don't think they can get. I don't think they'll get shut out. I think they'll be able to score one, but I don't know if they can get a result at all against any three of these teams. But yeah,
Yeah, I get big 2018 vibes from this Curacao, kind of from my boys in Panama. First World Cup, you're excited, you're exuberant, you're, you know, I can't even think of the words. I feel like Stephen A. Smith right now, dude. I'm trying to think of all these massive words that make no sense. But it's like you look at it, and it's a tough match because really, like, not only are these teams, obviously they can score and within Germany, but Ecuador and Ivory Coast. Now, I will say the Ivorians surprised me a little bit this AFCON. They put up 3 goals against Gabon, if I'm not wrong. They had a slugfest against Cameroon. I can't remember their round of 16 matchup. I believe it was Mozambique or somebody, but they were able to put up 3 goals in there as well. Or excuse me, Burkina Faso. And Burkina Faso is a solid defensive team. So the Ivorians can score as well. They've shown that. Obviously, the Germans, I mean, dude, where do you start with obviously the
yeah.
big man up front, Nick Tamada, Jamal Musiala, Florian Wirtz, the names go on and on. So Curacao is going to have it's going to be a tough one. I really see them struggling this World Cup. Unfortunately, I'm rooting for them like all of our other Concacaf teams. I'm rooting for these guys. I want them to do well. I want to see them compete, not only for them but also for the rest of Concacaf to put on a good show, a good face for us. I will say I think that Ecuador game could be interesting because I remember the 2014, or excuse me, the 2024 Copa America. Jamaica made it a little bit interesting with Ecuador. It was a 3-1 loss, but they were able to compete really well, especially in that second half. I could kind of see Curacao giving a little bit of a scare to the Ecuadorians. I could see them potentially maybe sneaking a point against the Ivorians, but like you said, dude, it's going to be a slugfest for these fellas.
Yeah, I agree with the Ecuador one because Ecuador just struggles to score. Now, granted, that's against South American opposition and like higher level opposition, but if there's a team that is the least clinical, it is Ecuador. So maybe they can make that a little bit competitive, but not so sure. But we'll move on to the final CONCACAF team, and that is Group L, the final group, and that has England, Croatia, Ghana, and Panama. Ooh, this is one hell of a group here for Panama. This is a tough one. I'll kick it off first. Honestly, man, this is you're getting the beloved rematch that everybody's been asking for. Will it be 6-1 again? Will it be 7-1? Panama versus England. It's probably going to be
Bro,
another
stop.
blowout
Just
game.
stop.
But
Stop. Stop.
quite honestly, this is a very tough group for Panama. These are all three teams that, quite honestly, I will say are better than Panama. Probably on
Absolutely
all
not.
fronts.
Absolutely.
And this is going to be an uphill battle for Panama. Now, if you're Panama, you're probably looking at that Ghana game. You're circling that on your calendars. Hey, we could probably get a point here or there. And quite honestly, I could see Panama maybe giving Croatia a little bit of a tough time just because of the age that this Croatian team is. They're kind of going through a transitional period. Maybe you can catch them on a good day. But England is just way too much for Panama. Quite honestly, there's a world class player in almost every level of the field. This England team. This is honestly one of the strongest England teams since like the late '90s, early 2000s. So, man, this I don't know if Panama can get out of this. I mean, we'll see as time goes and what this Ghana team looks like as we move forward throughout the next few months, as well as Croatia. But man, this was I think if you're Panama, if you were to probably swap them with Group D or Group A, I would feel a lot better about this situation because there's not a super big powerhouse in there, and there's teams that they could probably punch up to. But I think these teams that are in Group L are just too much to punch up to, except for maybe a Ghana where I think they can really make a difference. But yeah, man, I'll bounce it off to you as our resident Panamanian. But this is a tough group,
I'm gonna
man.
push back. I'm gonna push back a little bit on that. I'm gonna respectfully disagree with
On
your
what?
perspective on that. I don't think Panama is the worst team. I think if you look on paper, it's got to be Ghana. And listen, that's with all the world class pedigree that they've had in the past, all the World Cup experience. I think Panama rolls into this, and I don't just say this for myself, but I would say this to allude to a lot of Panamanians how we feel. Obviously, like you already said, we are circling that game. That is the game to win. That is our World Cup final. That is the game we got to go rolling in there, guns a blazing. And I will say, thankfully, dude, that is our first game of the World Cup. So going into this game, that is, we're talking about straight off the bat. We got to go hard. We got to go ham. We got to go get that bread and butter, baby. I mean, this is a tough one. Obviously, I respect Ghana, and I will say, I just saw it in the news earlier this week of time of recording. Antoine Semedo just made the move to Man City. If I'm not wrong, he played earlier today. So yeah, this is a team that they got some names. Obviously, Mohamed Kudus. Andre Ayew still plays over in France. He still plays with the national team. Inaki Williams. So there's big names there. Obviously, England. I don't even have to start. Croatia, like you said, that's another one I'm circling, man. That's another one I'm circling as well. I know we talked about this earlier, and Julian, you don't believe fans are going to travel from international abroad, but I've already heard so
I
many
think it depends on the
Panamanians
fan
talk about
base.
they're going to be making the travel, and they're already booking flights from Panama to go up to Toronto, baby. I mean, this is going to be a game that's going to be sold out. I think it's going to be a good 50-50 split. I think the Panamanian fans they're going to want to get there with the proximity of how close the United States is, just in the backyard of Latin America. This is a World Cup that they have to go to, and that we have to be there. So obviously, I think it's going to be a big game in that aspect. I will say, obviously, Croatia, paper wise, they've got the number, but to see that Luka Modric versus Koko Karaskija matchup is going to be, I think that's going to be a thing of beauty. I'm so excited for that. Like, just to see those two guys, I think we could arguably say two of the greatest midfielders in the world at this moment on that same field. It is just incredible. I don't know why you're laughing. I don't know why that's funny,
Yeah,
but I think it's an
Pumas
incredible
legend.
moment. And I think, I mean, dude, Concacaf legend, man.
Uh,
Concacaf legend. So I
Houston
think it's an
Dynamo Hall of
incredible
Famer.
statue. Dude, it's going to be big. It's going to be big. Obviously, like I said, I think the goal for Panama, and if I'm being quite real, if we can get 4 points, I mean, that's going down in the books,
Oh,
man. That is going to be incredible. That's the thing is, I'll be real. I look at this and I look at the ceiling. If I'm being super optimistic, I'm talking about 2014 Costa Rica vibes. For Panama, the ceiling would be 5 points. 5 points. The bottom, the bare minimum could be
You're not
0
getting a draw against
because I
England. You
could
can get
see
that out
us.
of your mind right now.
But the thing is,
Your defense
dude,
isn't
how
that
many
good.
Costa Rica was? When was Costa Rica supposed to draw England? When were they supposed to? When were they supposed to beat Uruguay, Italy? I mean, that
That
stuff.
was a
That
more
listen,
talented team, though,
obviously
man.
they're taking a chance, and I can understand that. That's it's taking a chance, but it is also you have to look at it like the X factor. There's so many different X factors, and stay tuned, by the way, guys. We're going to be making a video about that X factors on teams. But no, this dude, I wouldn't count this out as a this is done, this is over, wrap it up. You know, they're not going to get anything.
Let me say this though: when was the last time Panama played somebody outside of CONCACAF? You pretty much just have the one Uruguay game in Colombia. That's my one concern with Panama is the lack of experience internationally outside of CONCACAF. And even then, like they've only really played kind of the same teams in CONCACAF and kind of figured out those teams and how they play. I think Panama against Croatia, Panama against like Ghana is just something they're just not familiar with. They just don't have that necessary experience with outside of maybe an Annabelle Godoy who has been there for so long and was there for the last World Cup. That's my one concern with Panama is just the lack of experience of seeing European teams or an African team. I'm not even sure was the last time Panama played against a European team in the last World Cup, and when was the last time they played an African team?
Are you were exaggerating?
No, I'm
African
asking.
team, it's been a minute. A European team, it was last summer. I'm quite sure. I got to look it up.
Last summer,
we had a friendly against somebody.
Oh, friendly?
Northern Ireland, I believe. Let me look it up. I'll let you keep talking.
It's okay, but it's but yeah, I mean, overall, I it's going to be a tough one. You're definitely a little bit more optimistic than I am, but I'll let you ride that high. It's all good. But yeah, I mean, I think we could pretty much end it right there. Those are our reactions of pretty much all the CONCACAF teams. Oh wait, go ahead.
I want to say just one last thing. All I'll say is, not to push back fully on what you said because obviously I know we're wrapping it up, but this is a team that and I will allude this and I will say the same thing that I said about Curacao and Haiti. There's a lot of dogfight in these guys. This is a Panama team that this is, similar to Canada. This isn't their first merry-go-around. It's not their first World Cup. So the experience and that aspect of the country already knowing what it's like. And yeah, that first World Cup, I listen, dude, I don't think you could call it a disaster. It was bad. It was rough, but it was our first ever World Cup. I mean, dude, you have the third and fourth place team in the group in Belgium and England. So I agree. This is a very similar group within it. Another African team with Ghana now. So all I'm going to say is just keep, I'm going to keep riding that wave. I'm going to keep saying it, but
yeah,
hey, we'll see when June comes.
But yeah, anyways, we'll end it right there. Those are our basic initial reactions. I know we're a little late to this, but we want to give our thoughts on each one of these CONCACAF teams in their own respective groups. And yeah, be on the lookout for more World Cup and CONCACAF content as we approach the tournament. And yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one. Please be sure to like and subscribe. And yeah, peace out, everybody.